Hi guys, welcome back to another Q&A deep dive for the On the Side podcast. I am your host and registered dietitian, Jackie London, and I am psyched about this question. This is a biggie. I get this one all the time and I'm hearing it everywhere. And for some reason, I'm hearing it more than ever. So let's dive in. The question is plain and simple. I'm addicted to sugar. Help. I definitely can. All right. First of all, sugar addiction's not really a thing. And I hate saying that because I feel like there are people that are about to, kind of come at me with some of this kind of internet trolling nonsense that happens when you've watched that one, I think it was 60 Minutes documentary about sugar addiction. Whatever it is, there's lots of factors at play when it comes to why you personally are craving something sweet or want a sweet food or or feel like you just can't stop when you open a box of Swedish fish, right? But it's both behavioral and physiological. And in addition to the very real neuronal pathway that is what's talked about a lot in terms of sugar addiction. So we'll talk about all of that in just a second, but I want to kind of hone in on that a little bit more. Physiological and behavioral. Those are two other big areas that are playing a role in why you may or may not feel like you really want something sweet or you just don't want to stop eating something sweet. All of that's really important. So it's not just a biochemical, one neurological pathway, one neuronal pathway that is activated when you taste something sweet and then you get the reward of actually eating the sweet food. I think it is more important that we consider ourselves as the human beings that we are, which is real, whole humans who have lots of factors at play when it comes to making decisions about what we eat. We're often told this one piece of the scientific puzzle that is, sweet tasting something, sweet tasting food, serotonin boost in the brain, reward, right? And we feel like that loop just continues and that we just continue to exacerbate it. But think about who you are every day as a person eating consistent meals and snacks. If you're not doing that, right? If you're not eating consistently and you're not eating enough satisfying foods, then it's possible that by the time you get to the Swedish fish, you might feel like you just can't stop eating them, right? Because you're actually still hungry. That's one small example, but it also just reducing you to the idea that you could be addicted to sugar is just kind of reducing you to one biochemical factor and not looking at your a day in the life of you on the whole, right? So in research, scientists are looking at that one neuronal pathway, the trigger, the sweet taste, happy reward, responsible for feeling those feelings of joy and elation, right? But what else is happening when you're eating sugar, right? It is a lot easier to eat the Swedish fish if you haven't had anything else to eat today, or if you just had, one egg and a coffee this morning, or, if you're also feeling really like you always have Swedish fish when you go to the movies and you think you're going to have just one, but you always have them when you go to the movies. So why wouldn't you want to eat the whole box right now, right? So we have to think about both physiological, right? Are you eating consistently? Are you hydrated? How much did you sleep last night? How physically active are you on a daily basis? Those are really important factors. And then we have to think about what are the behaviors that you associate around that food or that you normally do with this food. To be honest, when it comes to the topic of dealing with this question, am I addicted to sugar? Can you be addicted to sugar? I often find that there's three key things that might be playing a role in either you feeling like you're eating too much of sugary foods, or in the fact that, let's just face it, numbers, statistics alone on population data from the CDC, we know we're over consuming sugar. So where are we getting it from? That's probably the more important question here, right? So consuming excess sugar from unlikely food sources of it without knowing it, and without knowing that those foods actually contain sugar, let's say condiments, sauces, breads, cereals, crackers, chips, fancy looking milks, like milk spelled with a Y, yogurts, protein bars, protein shakes, juices, even supplements like protein powders sometimes are sweetened, right? These are all different ways that sugar comes into our daily meals and snacks without us necessarily having a say in it, right? Like we should be able to make that decision. I personally would rather eat my weight in Swedish fish than unknowingly get added sugar from a protein powder. That's just me. That might not be you, Tommy, but I totally hear that. Okay. So the other reason why a lot of us are consuming excess sugar is often because we recognized, we knew that we were in the mood for something sweet. We recognized it and we tried to band-aid it with a different type of food or a different meal or snack, right? Case in point is like this old trope that's like, I've heard this a lot, and I feel like other dietitians probably hear this one a lot, which is like, I really wanted a donut. And then this like old school advice that's like, oh, you want something sweet? Have a piece of fruit. Nothing makes me angry. No, Donna, this banana is not going to take the place of my Boston cream donut. Let's just be real. Okay. Like, come on. I mean, we're all we've lived on the planet Earth. Like, we know that that's not going to do it. So I think it's way more important to pay attention to what you're actually in the mood to eat and eat it, rather than attempting to avoid it and ultimately feeling like we had no control then later on in the day, or we just wanted to eat the contents of our pantry. That's really important. I see that in so many different ways with so many people, and it often just shows up in these kind of sneaky and more unexpected ways that just make us feel bad about ourselves, when really, wouldn't it have just been so much more liberating to just have that fucking Boston cream donut and enjoy every bite? Novel. I know. But instead, what happens is that by doing this, by making this choice that's less satisfying, we wind up doing something that is, trying to band-aid the problem, and we leave ourselves this like gaping wound, because instead we wind up eating lots of different types of foods in order to try and crush this craving of ours that could be very real and very necessary for you, that you actually do want to eat that food, and that's okay. So give yourself permission, enjoy every bite, move on. Okay. The next reason why I often think that a lot of us are over consuming added sugar, and this kind of plays into this last point that I just made, which is that skipping meals, especially, and for whatever reason, I see this so much with skipping breakfast, skipping meals, or restricting all day, or going for prolonged periods without eating actual food, right? Not drinking enough water. So not staying hydrated enough. And those two really go together, because when you think about it, if you're running around all day, if you're doing lots of things throughout the day, it's that much easier to just kind of go for long periods and not actually be hydrating or eating enough for you and eating consistently. Okay. So eating and drinking consistently and not filling up on satisfying meals and snacks throughout the day, meals that actually feel like you had enough to eat, that is also a huge factor when it comes to why we wind up overdoing it on sweet tasting things, right? A lot of it is because, there's lots of people who tell me that they don't even necessarily kind of crave sweet things. And I totally understand that too. I think that all three of these things, right? The sneaky sources of added sugar in foods that you didn't know actually had added sugar, the trying to band-aid the problem when you really just could have had the donut and moved on with your life, or skipping meals, just simply the behavioral patterns that set us up for all of those things, which is not feeling physically satisfied throughout the day, make us feel that much more susceptible when that, pack of Twizzlers crosses our path, right? Like then we feel like, we already know that we had too much from like a bottle of, name a sweetened beverage, like a Coca-Cola bottle. A lemonade, let's just say, right? Like these are sneakier ways. A lot of us know that Coca-Cola has sugar, but these are lots of sneakier ways that lots of sugar plays into our day in more subtle ways. Like, let me give you a really subtle example is juice. Just don't kill me. Sometimes juices are just lots of shells of their former fruit and vegetable selves, distilled, not even distilled, concentrated, squeezed into just the sugar that goes into the bottom of a glass or a bottle, and winds up being actually naturally occurring sugar. So it's not added sugar. And we can talk about this at a different time, but you are getting naturally occurring sugar, but what you're really getting is all of the sugar concentrated from multiple different types of veggies and fruit into one place that won't ultimately be that satisfying because you didn't actually get the fiber and all of the good stuff that was actually in the fruit and vegetable itself, right? So you're just kind of getting a true shell of its former self in the form of a beverage that you drink. And then because beverages don't make us feel actually as physically satisfied as real food does, you're automatically bypassing that whole sensory experience of digestion, of chewing, of physically getting, physically feeling satisfied from the experience of eating food, right? It can just make us feel like this sense of virtuousness when really all we did was just kind of trick ourselves into drinking an expensive form of sugar. So I would say, think about those three things. Where are there places that sugar might be creeping into your day without you knowing it, and check labels on those possible food sources. Then why not have the Boston cream donut when you really want it and enjoy every bite? And you can do that by eating consistently throughout the day and making sure you're staying hydrated. That will really help you know when you're really in the mood for that donut versus when actually you were in the mood for that banana. All right. So that's a really important one. And then again, the basics, those consistent meals, staying hydrated, making sure you're not going for too long of a time between your meals and snacks. All of that will help you kind of get back to neutral and stay in touch with what you actually want to eat and when you want to eat it. And I can actually guarantee this one. I feel that confident about it, that you will start to feel either like you are truly in the driver's seat when it comes to making the choices that you want to make about where you get your sugar from, or you're going to feel like you don't necessarily want it quite as much. All right. So that's going to do it for today. I hope that answers your question. You're not addicted to sugar. All right. All right, Sally, I promise. That's just your green juice talking to you. I'm going to cut it there, guys. All right. I'm not going to torture you anymore with my continued talking, because I feel like enough is enough for today. But thank you for tuning into this. Appreciate you always. If you like this topic, if you want to hear more, if you are looking for more answers to your pressing nutrition questions, you can DM me at Jacqueline London RD on Instagram. Please rate, review, and love the podcast. It's On the Side Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And I can't wait to see you back here so soon. Thanks for tuning in.